any of our guests today, I might not do them justice. So I just prefer to refer to their names, and they are well known to every one of you, Dennis Ras and Amr Musa, with all due respect. And I would like to invite our guest, Dennis Ras, to start helping us demystifying this deal of century by framing the issue, by focusing on what are the context, the problems, what are we talking about? So would you please help us demystifying this?
I'd be happy to. I have to admit, I'm not quite sure where the term deal of the century came from. President Trump, even during the campaign for the presidency, began to talk about what he called the ultimate deal between the Israelis and Palestinians. This is a conflict that no one has been able to solve. Therefore, he referred to it as the ultimate deal. Now, maybe others began to translate ultimate deal into the deal of the century. Either way, it's a big deal, all right? And I think to try to use your word, to demystify it, one has to kind of look at it from two different standpoints. The first is, what is meant in the eyes of the administration by the, quote, ultimate deal? And how does that relate to the fact that there seems to be an evolving strategic reality in the Middle East? And what did the administration see when it came in, and how did that affect how they thought about this? So the first point is, the president from the beginning was convinced that the Israeli-Palestinian deal was something that was achievable. And it's clear this is a president who sees himself doing what no other presidents have done. Many people look at him as being the anti-Obama. That's certainly fair to say, but I think they don't quite grasp the reality that he sees himself as different from all of his predecessors. Right. One of the reasons it was almost a certainty that he would not exercise the waiver in the Jerusalem Embassy Act a second time. The law required movement of the embassy unless a waiver was exercised. He exercised it once in June of 2017. It was unlikely he was going to do it again simply because all of his predecessors had done that. Similarly, when he had talked about the JCPOA as having been the worst deal, turns out he has many views of the worst deals, but this was one of the worst deals. That again had been something he had been talking about. The fact that it was done by a predecessor was in no way going to make it likely that he would stick to it, even though his first Secretary of State and his Secretary of Defense were advocates for staying within it. So the first thing, when this president has talked about issues, pay very close attention to what he has said, particularly if this is something that he's repeated on multiple occasions. So the idea was they would go for an ultimate deal. Now, there was something else that contributed to this. When the administration came in, there was an increasing perception, especially in Washington, and here I would say it was a generally held view, that there was a new strategic reality emerging in the region between a number of Sunni Arab leaders and the Israelis, a number of Sunni Arab countries and the Israelis. And the reason was there was a shared threat perception. Both saw the Iranians as being a threat, and they saw the threat the same way. Both saw groups like Al-Qaeda and Daesh the same way. And there was also, I'd say in the Arab world, in the last couple of years of the Obama administration, partly because of talk about an Asian pivot, meaning a pivot away from the Middle East and emphasis on Asia, partly because of the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, and the perception that the Obama administration looked at Iran as not being part of the problem in the region, but as possibly part of the solution, something that was also developed, I think, in part, or concluded in part, because of the Jeffrey Goldberg article that spelled out the Obama doctrine, which in fact quoted the President Obama at length. Both of these perceptions raised question about how did the U.S. look at the region? Could countries in the region that had depended upon the United States for security guarantees, could they still depend upon them? and the recognition that more and more was being done below the radar screen between the Israelis and Arab countries fed a new concept. And the new concept, which I think was initially embraced by the administration, was called outside in. And what outside in meant was, gee, this new strategic relationship between the many Arab countries and the Israelis gave them a new incentive to resolve the conflict. And in addition, because of that incentive, the Arabs would be more open to producing the deal and would take a responsibility for the deal. Okay. It went so far as to say that, well, gee, if the Arabs can't take the place of the Palestinians, at least they can basically tell the Palestinians what they have to accept. And that's, I think, where the administration began, both believing that they had a new day and they could take advantage of the Arabs playing this role. Now, to be fair to them, over time, that view has changed. They're still talking about presenting the Trump plan, and I believe they will present it. There was a story yesterday saying that Jason Greenblatt, in a speech in London a couple of days ago, said the plan would be presented soon, but he didn't define soon. So I wouldn't, when you hear the word soon, I don't think you should interpret that as meaning
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, 2 weeks from now. Okay. This is something that I think will likely be heavily influenced by the timing of the Israeli election, and we can talk more about that. But when I say that the view has evolved, what I mean is this view initially was the Arabs can basically deliver the Palestinians. They understand, I'm pretty confident of this, that those responsible for who are running this is primarily Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt. I think they have what I would call a much more realistic view of what the Arab role could be. The way they see the Arab role now, I believe, again, I qualify by saying I believe, is not that they can deliver the Palestinians, not that they can publicly coerce the Palestinians, not that they can tell the Palestinians what to do, but that what they could do, if the plan that is presented is seen as being serious and credible enough, they could say something like, we have reservations about the plan, we have questions about the plan, but after having studied the plan, we do believe that it's a serious basis for negotiations. That's a more realistic view of what's possible, and I think that's the view that they hold. I would just add one thing, because obviously you can see I can go on for a long time. One thing, Amr and I have a capacity to go on for long periods of time.
Right.
But at least I will control myself today. The one thing I think they also understand, and this really becomes the essence of the question, to get the Arabs to embrace, at least in the following way, that this is a serious plan, even if we have questions about it, a serious plan for the basis of negotiations, it has to meet a certain standard of credibility. It has to give Arab leaders something they can point to in public that allows them to say, this is serious because based on what's in this plan, there is a real chance to achieve Palestinian national aspirations. They're not going to say the latter, but to be able to say it's serious, they have to point to what's in it on statehood, what's in it on Jerusalem. I do think those are the two most important issues. I'm not saying refugees and security aren't important, but I'm saying from the standpoint of Arab leaders, if those two, I would say those two essential points aren't there in a way that look credible, they will not be able to say what the administration would like to say. And I'll just conclude with this thought. No one yet has been shown the plan. There have been parts of it that have been discussed in general terms. And no one is going to react to this plan until they've had a chance to actually read it. And so one of the reasons I also say this isn't soon meaning imminent, right, because no one has had it shared with them yet. Okay, I'll stop there.
Please. Thank you very much, Dennis. This is great, and allow me later on to challenge you on some of the points you just raised. But to provide a context for Mr. Amr to come into the discussion, and we'll talk in Arabic if you allow me, Mr. Amr, just in a minute. But what Dennis has said, very important, providing a context for the discussion today. So there is a plan. And the motives, rationale, and logic of it is changes. Those have taken place in the United States in terms of changing administration from Obama pivoting to Asia, understanding of the Middle East, to the new administration. And based on understanding of a strategic shift within the Middle East, or a kind of, that is a possible reconcilability between Arab Sunnis and Israel. And the Arab can deliver Palestinians. This is assumptions for that. Now, many problems within that, which are the issues to be solved. Now, the problem, there is a plan, we don't know what the plan is. So that's what we need to arrive at. And also, another problem associated with that is when we say we need to deliver credible deal. Now, this credible is so mysterious in its tone. Credible in what terms, in what meanings, and to whom? Now, in terms of issues, Jerusalem and the state, these are issues to be dealt with. I do have a problem. Maybe they're not as important as we think. So let's take this challenge later on. أستاذنا الكبير أستاذ عمرو موسى، هذه الخلفية، هذا ما يراه الأستاذ دانيس، وهذا هو السياق العام. ما زالت القضية أكثر تعقيداً. هل يمكن لك أن تساعدنا في الحل؟
شكراً. دعني أبدأ بأن أشكر مركز الإمارات وأشكر الدكتورة ابتسام الكتبي ليس فقط للدعوة وإنما لهذا الترتيب المحكم للموضوعات المطروحة والموضوعات التي يتوجب مناقشتها. وقد رأينا ذلك بالأمس وبمراجعة جدول الأعمال الأجندة نجد أنها تعاملت بالفعل مع مراكز مهمة في إدارة الشؤون العالمية وفي العلاقات الدولية، وأنت أستاذ في العلاقات الدولية، سواء كان أمريكا والغرب، روسيا والصين والهند، وربما في دورة قادمة لابد من إضافة بعدين آخرين، العالم الإسلامي وإفريقيا من زاوية أعم، وأمريكا اللاتينية، لأنها تموج بتيارات هامة للغاية سوف تؤثر في العلاقات الدولية. والتناقض الكبير ما بين تيار تمثله فنزويلا يتجه جزء من اليسار، وتيار آخر يمثله الرئيس الجديد في البرازيل متجه بحماس شديد إلى أقصى اليمين. ده هيكون له أثاره في عدد آخر من الدول سواء في أمريكا اللاتينية أو في غيرها، وده شيء مهم أيضا لهذا المحفل للتعامل معه.
صفقة القرن. صفقة القرن.
منذ أسبوعين كنت في المنامة مشاركا في حوار المنام، وفي ختام هذا الحوار قامت إحدى المشاركات وكانت عضو في الوفد الأمريكي، وواضح أنها من الحزب الجمهوري ومن مؤيدي الرئيس ترامب، قامت بتلخيص ما فهموه من النقاش، فقالت بين أمور أخرى أننا فهمنا أن القضية الفلسطينية لا تزال حية في أذهان الأغلبية من العرب الحاضرين، وأن موضوع القدس لم يبلعه أحد في هذه المنطقة. الحقيقة أنه هذه الخلاصة كانت هامة للغاية، لأنه يبدو أن انطباعا ما ساد في أوساط غربية كثيرة على الأقل بأن القضية الفلسطينية أصبحت في الدرجة الثانية أو الثالثة أو الرابعة في الأهمية، وأنه تستطيع الآن أن تضعها على الرف وتناقش أمور أخرى. هذا انطباع خاطئ للغاية، لأنه إذا كان الغرف المغلقة مهتمة ومنشغلة بموضوعات أخرى، فالشارع، الميدان، النقابة، القبيلة، الجماعة، كلهم لم يتراجعوا في موضوع حقوق الفلسطينيين. وفي النهاية لا أعتقد أن حكومة ما تستطيع أن تتحدث من منطلق أن القضية الفلسطينية انتهت وأن العرب نسوا ما حدث للفلسطينيين، رغم أنه موقفهم في نصرة الحقوق الفلسطينية يسبق كثيرا العهود الثورية، بل يسبق قيام الجامعة العربية نفسها. هذا أمر متجذر، وأرجو أن يضعه الباحثون في الاعتبار، بخلاصة أن حل الوضع في الشرق الأوسط لا ينتهي بتغيير إيران لسياستها الخشنة، ولا ينتهي بأن تفهم تركيا أنها لا تستطيع أن تقود هذه المنطقة. لا ينتهي بهذا، لا بد من حل للمشكلة الفلسطينية، وإلا يظل الأمر في حالة اضطراب كبير. هناك من يتحدث عن احنا خلاص في القرن 21، انسوا الماضي. تنسى الماضي ازاي؟ ولماذا تنسى الماضي أنت ولا ينساه الآخرون؟ فتقوم السياسات على أساس تراث آخرين، ونحن نرفض أو نستمع إلى النصيحة الغير أمينة أنه انسوا الماضي القريب وخلينا نشوف نعمل إيه من الآن فصاعدا. الاثنين لا ينفصلان. أمس في النقاش في الحلقتين في التو بانلز، الخاص بأمريكا السياسة الأمريكية والآخر الخاص بالسياسة الروسية، استمعنا نحن المواطنون العرب إلى الكثير من الحجج والطروحات، إنما واحد فيهم بس لقصر الوقت أحب أشير إليه، إنه في البانل الخاص بالسياسة الأمريكية جرى الحديث عن تحالف في المنطقة بين الدول متشابهة التفكير. والغريب أنه في البانل الآخر الذي ناقش الشؤون من وجهة نظر الروسية أيضا تحدثوا، كان الحديث عن تكتل من الدول متشابهة التفكير من الناحية الأخرى، أي أن أمامنا تصور لتحالفات أجنبية لها صبغة دولية في الصراع الدولي القائم. أحدهما يتزعمه الدولة العظمى الأولى، والثاني يتزعمه دولة كبيرة عظيمة هي الأخرى أي روسيا. وزي ما بيقولوا بالإنجليزية إنه إذا تصارع الأفيال فالكل يعاني. The grass suffers. دي رسالة أرجو أن نعيها نحن العرب، أن أمورا كثيرة تجري على حسابنا وأننا غير واعين كفاية للأضرار القادمة إذا لم ننطلق من ما هي مصلحتنا العربية، ما هي المصلحة الإقليمية، ويحدد ذلك ما نراه في صالحنا، ونستطيع أن احنا نجتمع لندرس ليس فقط الحكومات أو مراكز البحث، إنما أيضا أصحاب المصالح الحقيقية، أي الناس العاديين في تجمعاتهم في منتدياتهم، أنه يفكروا في ما هو قادم من صعوبات.
دقيقة.
Now
دقيقة عشان ننتقل للأسئلة الأخرى أرجوك.
أنا دقيقة ولا اثنين؟
لأنه أنا عندي
طيب.
3 أسئلة بدنا نعطيكم.
أنا حاجي الآن لما يقال أنه صفقة القرن. الحقيقة أنه أنا أول ما سمعت الرئيس ترامب يتحدث عن حل جذري قلت ده شيء جديد. لماذا؟ لأن كافة الإدارات السابقة، السياسات السابقة واللي أسهم فيها دينيس، كانت تعمل على أساس إدارة الصراع وليس حل المشكلة. لم يكن هناك آفاق للحل، إنما كيفية الإدارة. ولتبقى القضية الفلسطينية والنزاع العربي الإسرائيلي لأنه ده له فوائد أيضا، بقاء له فوائد. فقلت لا، شيء جديد إن هذا الرئيس ترامب يريد الحل وليس الإدارة وليس إدارة الصراع. إنما ظهر أن هذا الحل هو الحل الإسرائيلي، بحيث أنه الصفقة كما سمعنا عنها ورأيناها، رأينا يعني إرهاصاتها 90%، بل أنا بقول 99% لصالح طرف و1% لصالح الطرف الثاني. هذا لا يمكن أن يشكل صفقة، ولا يمكن أن يشكل صفقة مقبولة أبدا تحت أي ظرف من الظروف. وواضح أنه بدايتها هو استبعاد القدس من أي كلام في المفاوضات، لا صفقة ولا القدس بره. دي بداية لأول القصيدة، يعني خطأ بالغ. فإذا كيف يمكن أن تكون هذه الصفقة؟ نمرة 2 أنها تستعيد أو تأتي مرة أخرى بالخيار الأردني على المائدة. الثالث أنها تريد أن تخلق خيارا مصريا.
تمام. أشكر سيدي. We'll continue in a minute. So because this is very important, I need to digest and process and then take it back to Dennis.
دعني أنهي هذا.
اتفضل.
ولا أعتقد أن الأردن سوف يقبل بذلك، لا أعتقد أن مصر سوف تقبل بذلك، ولا أعتقد أن الفلسطينيين سوف يقبلوا بذلك. ومن ثم فأنا أعتقد جازما أنه مش ممكن أن تقبل، حتى ولو كان هناك شيء كده some sugar coated points زي ما بيقول دينيس. this cannot work، لأنه إذا كنت استبعدت القدس واستبعدت اللاجئين واعتبرت المستوطنات شيء قائم، أمر واقع يجب العمل على أساسه، إيه اللي هيدوهنا عشان يستطيع أي نظام، أي حكومة، أي سياسي يقول دي نقطة كويسة؟
Perfect. Got the point. Thank you very much. So, المطروح لا يشكل صفقة لأنه يتحيز لطرف على طرف. المطروح يعيد إنتاج الخيار الأردني وينتج خيارا مصريا يستبعد القدس ولا يعطي الفلسطينيين حقوقهم. حقوق الفلسطينيين لم تنسى، علينا على الصفقة أن تهتم بها، حتى لو تم حل مشاكل إيران وتركيا في المنطقة تبقى القضية الفلسطينية هي الأساسية. فإن كانت الصفقة عن الترتيبات الإقليمية لن تخلق توازنا أو تخلق سلاما. هذا ما يقوله بالتقريب الأستاذ عمر. So I'll take it back to you, Dennis. So it seems to me Mr. Amr knows that there is something presented, and to him it does not constitute a deal. And that deal is not going to produce a solution simply because it does not recognize the major rights of the Palestinian. So my question is whether we agree on that or not, and whether we really know something about what is proposed. And then I'll take it more into the logic of international relations and power relations. And this is new strategic shifts. So would it be still possible to speak the rights?
Well,
go ahead.
The good news is, I said to Amra the other night that over the years, we have dealt a lot with each other and frequently not agreed. And today may prove to be no exception to that. First, I want to make a couple points and I'll answer what you're asking. Amra said that all the previous efforts were about management. And he was contrasting what he heard from Trump as being possibly hopeful because he was talking about a solution. The Clinton parameters were presented not as a management, but as a resolution. And I can go through the details of the Clinton parameters. Those were presented at the end of the Clinton administration in response to a request from both sides for us to present a bridging proposal. And they covered all the issues, all the core issues, and I'm happy to go through and describe what was offered. Okay. But that was definitely not a management approach. Secondly, I have no doubt, and here we agree, that the Palestinian issue remains a fundamental issue because it's a symbol of justice or injustice. So it can't be wished away. And I think sometimes there are those who think somehow the issue can be wished away because there's a preoccupation with everything else. When many in the region and outside the region talk about all the other issues that are dominating, they're not making it up. I mean, 500,000 dead in Syria is a fundamental, strategic, human issue. 14 million people on the verge of starvation in Yemen is a real issue. It can't be wished away. What the Iranians are attempting to do in the region is a real issue. It can't be wished away. Okay. For a number of governments here, it isn't that the Palestinian issue has disappeared, it's that they have a more immediate focus on what they see as a more immediate threat. So that's the context in which I would try to frame things. Now on to the question of this is not a solution because it's a one-sided solution. What Amr's referring to is there's been a series of steps or moves made by the Trump administration that make it look like they're prejudging what's going to be in the deal. The declaration on Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, one might have thought if that was going to be done, it would be presented as part of the plan, because then you'd have, here's what the Israelis get, here's what the Palestinians get, and it wasn't done. But there was qualifying language when the president presented. He said, we're not recognizing the boundary of Israeli sovereignty here because that has to be negotiated. We don't know what is in the plan yet. I can't vouch for the plan and say it's going to address what it needs to because we haven't seen it. But my impression at this point is that the people who have been formulating this plan, and they have developed it, my impression is that they understand that there is no deal that doesn't address the needs of both sides, not only of one side. Now, if it turns out that when they present it, what they feel has met the needs of both sides doesn't really do so, that's one thing. I mean, I can tell you, we know that Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt at one point in briefing the UN Security Council said that this is a deal that the Israelis will like some of it and dislike some of it. The Palestinians will like some of it and dislike some of it. I can tell you in a conversation I had, I said, that sounds good. If it turns out that one side likes 85% and dislikes 15%, and the other side likes 15% and dislikes 85%, it's not going to work. But at this point, before leaping to the conclusion, before it's ever been presented, I don't think that you can say you know for sure what it's going to be. You've seen indications that give you a cause for worry. What I've suggested earlier was that if this is presented to Arab leaders, and I'm saying that it has to be, and what I'm saying in addition, a couple things have to happen. One, it needs to be presented in writing. It needs to be presented in writing. It can't just be verbal. Okay. So that those Arab leaders, and I would say we're talking about, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and Morocco. These were, I think they were kind of created, there was a quartet internationally, and then there was an effort to create what was the equivalent of a kind of a quint here on the peace issue. If they were to both see this in advance, read it in advance, have the chance to make some comments on it, and if it meets, as I said, a credible standard on what would look like a credible state, if it provides for a capital in Arab East Jerusalem for that state, if it you know, if it calls for to use the words of the Arab Peace Initiative, a just, fair, and agreed solution to the Palestinians, then I think it meets the standard of being serious or credible. Do I know it's going to have that in it? I don't know. But that's why I say I think it's a mistake to prejudge it before you see it.
Good.
There's plenty of opportunity to make a judgment about it once you've seen it.
Sure. Thank you, Dennis. Yes, the mistake is to judging the things that you don't know, and here's I think the source of the problems about the deal of the century, that people criticizing things that never been presented, but they're speculating about what it might have into it, especially, of course, for these all leakage that we know about and the leaks about the media, something here, something there. And also there are steps on the ground, like moving the American embassy to Tel Aviv, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Now, both of you, you work together, trying to provide a peace plan, try to provide a solution and not managing the conflict itself. Given what's been said about this deal and taking you back to 2000 Camp David talks and to the Arab initiative that was presented in Beirut, I think you were there, and you are in charge both to provide the solution that is agreeable and credible. Given all of these strategic shifts, United States, globally, and particularly in the region, and the rise of new threats and priorities, not only non-state actors, terrorism, and radicalizations, but certainly Iranian projection of power. What both of you would suggest to the decision makers to do to make it achievable? And all parties, players' interests are served, and within a dynamic stability environment. So I will start with Mr. Amr, and then back to you, Dennis. And we have 5 minutes to conclude this deal. Please.
Oh. Well, thank you very much. I want to comment on 2 points raised by Dennis. The first one is about Jerusalem, and that there is something there, since the President said we recognize Jerusalem without its borders. So there is an opportunity there. I want to draw your attention to the fact that the US ambassador to Israel, the next day after President Trump said what you mentioned, said, we mean Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and Israel alone. Get back to the statement delivered by the ambassador in order to allay any fears on the Israeli camp and any hopes on the Palestinian one. That is first observation. Second observation is about what you said, that the deal has not yet been presented to the Arab leaders. I want you to know that this time, and after the serious change that has taken place in the Arab world and in this region, you should add, this plan has not yet been presented to the Arab leaders nor to the Arab people. The Arab people will have a stand this time. And the young people, and after all what we have seen in the last 4 or 5 years, we cannot accept to get back to the status quo ante as if nothing happened. So the public opinion is playing a role that has not been played before in the last 10 years or so. Arab people will tell everybody whether there is an acceptance or non-acceptance. And this is the decisive factor. That would determine the attitude of the leaders. They are not going to take that risk and accept something that they know the vast majority would not accept. The third point is about prejudice. No, we are not trying to prejudice or just talk about something that we don't know. We have seen what is going on. But we have to prepare ourselves. As you said, Professor Ayadat, we have to get ready for the worst. As for what to do,
Yes.
I believe that people like you, Dennis, and myself and others like Nabil Fahmy and many of us on the American side, on the Arab side, from several Arab circles, not government officials, we have to sit together and discuss the possibility of a plan to be presented to the governments by this group of experts that have gone through all the details in the last 20 years. We know every corner and every point and every comma of what should be written and what should not.
Okay.
We have the Arab initiative. The US government perhaps will have this deal, ultimate deal, as you said. But we, the experts, the people that know how to draft an initiative, should get together in a, that is why I told Ibtisam and I told also other colleagues and friends in this region, that is not only the plenary and the debate and the discussion of an issue, but we need round tables that gets 10 people, 12 people, and sit and write something, discuss it, and go through it later on with others. This is our duty, and I believe this is one of the issues I wanted to tell the public about. That we have the responsibility to come up with ideas.
All right.
And plans and perhaps a draft.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So the proposal is bringing people back into politics to provide a new initiative, new ideas, new thoughts of what a just and lasting peace would look like. Dennis, would you accept these people coming back and you would sit with them to drive this, or you have other proposals? Thank you.
Look, having taken part in multiple Track 2 efforts, which I continue to do, I'm a big believer that people who have a lot of experience on this should get together quietly, you have to have the kind of quiet discussions where you can go through every issue and everybody can brainstorm together and nobody has to be fearful of presenting an idea because somehow it gets exposed in the wrong way. There's great value in that. And I continue to be a believer in that. I do think we need to give the Trump administration, well, first of all, it's not whether we have the choice or not. They're going to come with a plan. While I said soon doesn't necessarily mean imminent, you know, the president, a little while, maybe 2 months ago, about maybe less than 2 months ago, said the plan would come out in 2, 3, or 4 months. It's going to come out soon enough. Now, I think a lot will depend on the timing of the Israeli election. Israel has to hold an election no later than 1 year from today. There is a lot of speculation that it might take place end of February, beginning of March. I suspect that the administration will choose to wait if the election is going to be moved up. If it's not, then I think they will come out with it beforehand. So I think in any case, we have to see what that's going to be. I find one of the points I find very interesting that Amr made is the role of public opinion here. There's always been a role of public opinion in the Middle East. The question is, how has it been expressed? Is it anticipated, and therefore there's a concern not to try things because public opinion won't accept it? Is there a sense that somehow you can lead public opinion? And there's also, if you look at polling over the last couple of years, one of the things that you see, there's a lot of different frustrations in different Arab countries. An issue of governance rises very high on the list. Having an economic future rises very high on the list of concerns. It's not an accident that almost every poll you see among those who are aged 18 to 24 in all the different Arab countries, they always talk about they would most like to be here. in the UAE. Well, that says something about why is it they want to most be here. What is it about the UAE in terms of governance and the like, the prospect of jobs? So there are a lot of different considerations. If one could also portray this, this possible deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians in a way that can be, I think, justifiably defended as meeting the needs of Palestinians, then it can also be wrapped in a larger context of what it can mean in terms of future developments in this region. So I can see a way that public opinion can look at this and find it acceptable, you know, if the leaders are prepared to embrace it. Amr raises a point, if they're afraid of how the public's going to respond, they won't embrace it. A lot, in my mind, depends upon, again, how they see the priorities at the time and what's most urgent. So I'm, you know, look, you couldn't work on this issue for as long as I've worked on it unless you always retain a degree of optimism. So I think if a plan can be presented that is the right plan, then it has, in my mind, it has a chance.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, public opinion, people back into politics are proposals to be discussed. Problem with public opinions can be impacted, changed, and subjectively interpreted. Other problems has to do with physics of politics, the logic of power, and the existential interest of each party to be guaranteed and served in order for a deal to be conducted. I turn now to the floor, taking questions. I'll take the group of the questions all together, and I'll start with Mr. Mahmoud Jibril. All questions, and then the panelists will react directly to them. So please.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أولا شكرا للpanelists. The panel was very informative. I have three quick questions. The first one for Mr. Dennis Ross. Do you think that the question of not coinciding or finding a common ground between security and natural rights was the main problem since 1948 till this moment? For the Israelis, it's a security issue, and for the Palestinians, it's rights issue. For the first time, there was an opportunity. It was during 1973 war, the first 5 days, where the security of Israel was really threatened. Only at that moment, the United States was ready to negotiate, and the Israelis was ready to negotiate and have a win-win situation where rights and security can be intertwined together. The second question is the issue of Jerusalem, and this for Mr. Amr Moussa. لما سيد ترامب اعتبر القدس عاصمة أبدية لإسرائيل، هو في حقيقة الأمر عمل تيست للأنظمة العربية وللشارع العربي، وعرف لو هو حيطرح أي صفقة مستقبلاً إلى أي مدى يمكن أن تعارض هذه الصفقة. لكن من ناحية أخرى، وهذا حاب أعرف رأي حضرتك فيه، هو كان ممكن أن يستعمل هذا كأداة للردع وأداة للتهديد أثناء النيغوشيشن ليأخذ أكبر قدر من التنازلات، ولكن باعتباره استعمل هيدروجين بامب فيرست، العرب they have nothing to lose or to concede anymore، لأن أكبر شيء كان تم التنازل عنه. يعني هل معنى هذا أن أي ديل مستقبلا سيفرض فرضا في غياب أي رد عربي قوي، يفرض فرض ولو فرض، ما هو الرد العربي المتوقع؟ شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا. السؤال الثاني الأستاذ نبيل فهمي. Please, تفضل.
شكرا. Dennis, you basically started off by saying that the new proposal, or the what we're discussing today, is a function of a new strategic reality in the region. I'd really like to challenge you a little bit on that. Of course, there are things that are new, but didn't we have the same opportunity in the Madrid Peace Conference in the early 90s, when the whole world was changing, as well as the region was changing, with a new reality? Didn't we have the same opportunity when the Arab Peace Initiative came up in 2002? In both cases, they were out inwards as well as inwards outwards. I don't think that's really the problem. The Arabs have been ready to have peace with Israel for generations, provided there is a two-state solution based on 67 and all the other details. I think something more has to be done, really, than simply make the assumption that we need each other now, so it's going to happen. My question to you really is, are you assuming the negotiations, were they to start, will be on a two-state solution or on some other format? Because my belief is that the present Israeli government, different from other governments, does not believe in a two-state solution based on 67. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this Audi Aburdani? Yes, says Audi.
Okay.
And I think this is going to be the last question, or the last question on this route. We'll see how time permits. Please, Mr. Audi.
Dennis, you probably have been at this process longer than anybody. What were the mistakes of the past, and what can you do to conclude a deal today?
Thank you. Dr. Bassam, can we borrow like 3 hours from other sessions? Because we need so many questions I can see here. Anyway, I'll get back to the panelists, and I'll start with Dennis, and I'll end with Mr. Amr. So please.
Okay, so I think on the first question of security, and I'll tie it together, I think, with what Nabil was raising as well. What is different, Nabil, today than in the past, it's not that there weren't different kinds of strategic convergences. The difference is that Israel is working very closely with a number of different Arab states on common security problems. In the past, that wasn't the case. It might be, maybe with Jordan, there were things that were done very quietly, but Egypt and Israel, Israel and Jordan, the scope of what they do now is way beyond anything that was done before, given what are seen as common threats. And it's clear that below the radar screen, Israel is acting with a number of Gulf states as well on security questions. That's what produced this image of outside in. By the way, I didn't say I subscribed to it. I always thought this notion of somehow the Arabs are going to take the place of the Palestinians or they can coerce the Palestinians was always an illusion. But I do think that the Arabs do have something to contribute now that goes beyond what was the case before. And what is beyond what was the case before is if Arab leaders were to say, assuming the plan is credible, I can't say at this point that it's going to be, but if it were credible, and they were to say this provides a serious basis, for Palestinians, that begins to provide a cover for what they might have to decide. But it also provides a cover for the Israelis. You know, the Palestinians, in fact, probably need a cover because it's very hard to justify from their standpoint any kind of compromise. They see themselves as the weakest player, which is true. They see themselves as divided, which is true. They see themselves as a victim of an injustice, which is true. And it's hard to rationalize making what would be concessions to the Israelis. But the Israelis, too, have a hard time rationalizing concessions to the Palestinians because they don't believe any concession they make to the Palestinians will be reciprocated. So for the Palestinians, they need a kind of cover, not to take the place of the Palestinians, but to help them. But the Israelis do, too, because the Israeli public will accept concessions to the Palestinians if they're getting something from the Arabs. I believe in the current setting, that is more pronounced than we've seen before, number one. Number two, on the issue of security, one of the things that makes it difficult in Israel today is that the Israelis look around the region. They see what's going on in Syria. They see an ISIS presence in the Sinai. You know, they've seen conflicts, whether it was Iraq or Syria, that seem generally unlimited, and anything seems to go. And they say, is this the time to be taking a risk on security? So this Israeli government, I think, is focused more on that. Nabil asked the question, or made the observation, that he doesn't think that this Israeli government accepts a two-state outcome. And I would simply say, in the end, there's no plan that's going to work without a two-state outcome. And I assume, but I could be wrong, I assume that the Trump administration understands that they present a plan that doesn't provide for a two-state outcome, they will get a negative from the Arabs for that. On lessons learned from the past, key lessons learned from the past, there's a lot of different lessons I've learned from the past.
And half a minute, please, Dennis. We need to wrap it.
Okay. I don't have the 3 hours to explain all those lessons. But for those of you who want to hear them, I'll go through them after the session.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you. Mr. Amr, please.
Yes, I must say that we still are very far from reaching a point where the Palestinians would really think seriously of accepting certain rules or certain points of any initiative that would come. But the idea or the term used by Dennis about the Arabs or the Arab side work as a cover for the Palestinians to accept this or that point is a bit intriguing. I would say the Arabs would sponsor a position, support the Palestinians, not to give them a cover. And we cannot give a cover to a bad deal. Nobody can dare do that. That is one. Two, the idea, you know, the Americans are very good at coming with terms, with expressions, outside in. Outside in, we started that. We on the Arab side, with the Arab Initiative. But we brought the Palestinians with us. So all of us decided that this is the best deal. The Israelis need security and normalization and recognition. So the Arab Initiative, and I invite all the Arabs here and everybody to read it again, this initiative of Beirut, in Beirut, March 2002. So the three considerations of the Israeli side were met by the considerations of the Arab side, that is withdrawal, Palestinian state, with East Jerusalem as the capital, and a negotiated process on the issue of refugees.
Negotiated
process
okay.
On the issue of refugees in accordance with the Security General Assembly resolution, etc. So that was an outside in. We sponsored a solution taking into consideration all the Israeli demands.
And last word on this?
Yeah, excuse me.
Sorry.
And committed ourselves to normalization, full normalization, and full recognition. Then Israel never accepted, but came up with the idea, okay, why not accept this initiative, but let us start with normalization. Very strange thing. Okay, we are not that stupid to give a concession a priori up front. So those things, I believe, we can work them out if this idea of a group that should start and deliver something workable for a fair solution.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, maybe one last sentence on the topic. A changing a mindset from or providing a mini-max mindset in game theory terminology, minimizing maximum loss, is a way to move ahead for conducting a deal. This has been an outstanding discussion. Thank you both, Dennis and Mr. Amr. Thank you all for being here for discussions, and welcome to the following sessions. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
يلا سيدي.
The next panel starts now. The next panel starts now. The next panel starts now. The next panel starts now.